Greetings from LA, my dear friends. This is Daisuke, and I very much hope that this video finds you well and in very good spirits wherever you are in the world. And today, if you don't mind, I would very much like to continue on with our journeys, our discussions, our discoveries, and our explorations with respect to the recent releases made by the Criterion Collection during this year of 2024. And specifically, I'd like to speak about a film which is included in a double bill film Criterion Collection catalog release at spine number 232. This had already been released previously under a really nice DVD edition, but this year Criterion has re-released this but under a Blu-ray edition, and it is the films of A Story of Floating Weeds and Floating Weeds from the filmmaker Yasujiro Ozu. And so today I'd like to focus our attention on one of the films, and such film is described as being from the year 1934, and the filmmaker is Yasujiro Ozu, and the name of that film is Ukigusa Monogatari, or A Story of Floating Weeds. This is the incredible work, very delicate, very emotional, and very engaging work. It's a silent film, which is described as being from the year 1934. It is from the director Yasujiro Ozu, and it's a story by Yasujiro Ozu. The story is credited to someone named James Maki, but according to the materials, including the great Donald Ritchie commentary track that's accompanying this film, we'll talk a little bit about that later. This was a nom de plume for Yasujiro Ozu himself. But so this is a film by Yasujiro Ozu, and among its really great cast, we have people like Takeshi Sakamoto and Choko Ida and Koji Mitsui, or as he was known then, Hideo Mitsui, and others. And this is the work which is called in Japanese Ukigusa Monogatari, or as it's known in English, A Story of Floating Weeds. So, my dear friends, this is, of course, one of the two films that's found in this now released Blu-ray edition of this catalog title, A Story of Floating Weeds and Floating Weeds. So we have two films in one release. So this is the first of such films. And so what I propose to do is to talk a little bit about the film A Story of Floating Weeds, and also some of the contours of the supplements that are associated with the film as it appears in this single disc Blu-ray set. So that means the commentary track. So and some aspects of the presentation, etc. So we'll talk a little bit about those contours over the course of this video. And I should also point out that this is a re-release of a catalog title that had been previously released under a really great, robust double disc DVD edition some time back. At spine number 232. The individual films themselves do not have their own specific individual spine numbers, but the set overall, or the release overall, is given spine number 232. That set, of course, is the two films, A Story of Floating Weeds and Floating Weeds. So let us first, if it's okay with you, talk about, maybe try to endeavor to speak a little bit about the plot or story structure of A Story in Floating Weeds. And if we were to try to do so, I think we could focus our attention on this provincial seaside town in Japan that is paid a visit one day by a traveling sort of acting theater troupe. And who are going to stay there for a certain prescribed amount of time and make performances in the area. That's part of their. That's part of the gig. That's part of the aspect of the traveling troupe. You know, they travel all around, and this is one of the places that they've been to. And the leader of this troupe is the character known as Kihachi, and this is the Takeshi Sakamoto character. And Kihachi is for those who know Ozu works, especially during this period, you'll likely recognize Kihachi as a sort of prominent character in Yasujiro Ozu's filmography output. But he's front and center. He is in many ways, one of the main characters of this. And one of the ways that he is one of the main characters, Kihachi, is that he is the leader of the troupe, and that the troupe is visiting this provincial area, seaside area, for a given amount of time, and they're to have performances and hopefully try to raise money and earn a living. And there are many people as part of the troupe, including some of the other actresses in the troupe, such as the character Otaka character and Otoki character. And Otaka character in particular having not just a professional relationship with the leader of the troop, Kihachi, but also they are having a sort of an intimate romantic relationship. That's the understanding. So this is the state of affairs as they arrive in this seaside resort, not resort, but seaside provincial town area one day, and they're going to be here for a certain amount of time. And we also, however, understand that Kihachi, one of our main characters, also perhaps has an ulterior motive for coming here, or perhaps another way to put it, he has. There's another reason for him to be very excited to be visiting this area because along the way we see him during off hours, so to speak. We see him visiting or stopping by one of the locals, the people who live in this area. And one of the people that he visits is a woman named Otsune. This is the Choko Ida character. And they have a good rapport, and they apparently they have known each other from the past. So this is not the first time that they are meeting. And we understand fairly early in the development of this film that, in fact, they had once, in the past, had an affair, and they have feelings. They had feelings for each other, and now when they meet again, after a number of years have passed, they still evidently have a certain degree of feelings for each other, although it may be not shown in the exterior, or perhaps it's somewhat muted in order to hide the depth of their feeling, or perhaps some other factors and certain maybe cultural dynamics and dimensions of sort of expressions of emotion, etc., also might have to do with how they're interacting. But there is evidently a kind of connection between the two of them, and this is evident. This is revealed somewhat early on in the film. The Otsune character and the Kihachi character. And this is also further made amplified by the fact that we are also introduced to a young man who is the son of Otsune, and this is the character, the Shinkichi character, and this is the Koji Mitsui or Hideo Mitsui character, and he is a young man, and he is. He knows of Kihachi, this young man Shinkichi, because he thinks that Kihachi, the actor of the traveling troupe, he thinks that Kihachi is his uncle. But what he doesn't know is that, in fact, Kihachi is his father. But that revelation is hidden from the son. And so Kihachi, whenever he visits, he is the uncle to this young boy who's now growing up. And so this has a certain level of complexity and depth, but now when Kihachi visits, he is visiting his son, but he is regarded as an uncle because the son doesn't know the truth. So this, however, arises as some kind of suspicion on the part of the current mistress of the acting troupe. And so after certain maybe levels of, say, machinations or certain levels of intrigue, shall we say, are heightened, we realize that there is jealousies afoot, and the actress, a part of the troupe, becomes very jealous and discovers the reasons why Kihachi is making all these visits. And so in order to get back at Kihachi, she hatches a plot to try to convince one of the other actresses in the troupe, that's the Otoki character, to essentially meet and seduce the young man, the Shinkichi character, in an attempt to try to get back and get even at Kihachi. So there's all this intrigue going on and kind of drama, human relationships, and revelations and jealousies going on at the heart of this film. And also secrets that may or may not be revealed as the proceedings go, and the idea of deception and not revealing the truth, but also creating a sense of real depth of emotion, because even where there is deception, or even where truth is not fully revealed, that doesn't preclude the possibility of real human emotional connections between and among the characters. And we see a lot of that in the fore as we proceed throughout this film, The Story of Floating Weeds. And so this is essentially the backdrop or the backbone of the character, say, network of the drama of the film. And it is portrayed in this wonderful uh, serene way through the Ozu lens and camera and the fixed placement. And one of the great things about this release and the commentary track by Donald Ritchie, which we'll talk about a little bit later, is that we also understand that Ozu has a very wide and illustrious and quite varied filmography. And so there were many films that Ozu made prior to making this film, A Story of Floating Weeds, in the early to mid 1930s. But what Donald Ritchie and others have pointed out and observed is that we see a lot of the thematic and maybe stylistic elements of Ozu films that become very famous, say post 1934, post 1940, post into the 1950s, and the latter half of Ozu's career. We see a lot of those thematic and stylistic points quite established in this film. A Story of Floating Weeds, all the way from the title design and the sort of the matte burlap matte fabric material that's used as the backdrop of the title design, or the structure of fixed camera placement in order to emphasize the framing of the shots and the details within the frame, even in the four corners and on tables and on the mats, and also to delineate, let's say, ceilings or maybe showcase floors, etc. Also the low angle or the high angle and the framing of a character within a particular frame. So this is also delineated very sharply and very nicely throughout this types of portraits of shots that are framed quite immaculately and meticulously in order to evoke a sense of, say, period, or just maybe a feeling of a kind of a decor or decoration, or a sense of maybe depth, or a sense of geographic placement, and all the while treating the characters with a great degree of deference and respect. Pay attention to the space and where they're looking. They might be looking at the camera slightly off camera, and sometimes the eye line might cut to a different place that may or may not match in quote unquote conventional eye line match editing techniques, so to speak. But that's not the point of an Ozu film, right? The point of an Ozu film, among many points, is to sort of soak in the beauty of a fixed shot and to see the details that are ornately decorating such fixed shot, while soaking in the story and feeling the ambience and feeling those moments that maybe just the day-to-day things, or maybe it's a little moment of a recognition, or maybe it's taking a breath, or maybe it's appreciating some aspects of the theater, the acting troupe, the kabuki troupe, or maybe it's the seaside country decor. It's maybe the way that people walk down the street and through a corridor, or maybe it's the way that the rain falls as certain developments reach their fever-pitched intensity, etc. It's these moments of serenity and kind of a kind of how should I put it? A type of beauty that is unparalleled in cinema, and Ozu is a master at this type of attention to detail, while also giving us a sense of time and depth, and just letting us soak in those moments. And so I think this film is therefore presenting a story or a series of quite complex human drama story details, presenting them in a way that is always maintaining a sense of beauty and serenity. And kind of a wonderful precision to detail that is so Ozu, and it's so robust and so wonderful. And so we see that, I think, in great detail in this wonderful film, A Story of Floating Weeds. This is a silent film, and there are the title cards in Japanese, or the titles that are displayed in Japanese, and so therefore, for purposes of this Criterion release, we have English subtitles. There is a way in which the action of the film is really quite absorbing. The overlap of scenes upon scenes and the way that things are tightly edited together. There is a real sort of a beautiful organic flow to the work. There is also, and I use this word a lot during this discussion, serenity. There is a calmness to this film that is so nourishing, I think, from the viewpoint of the viewer. And even as we get these complex details from these wonderful performances, the great characters, Kihachi, Shinkichi, etc., we get a lot of the emotional register, the emotional human emotional register, because a lot's going on, and a lot of life-altering events are happening potentially, and it's registered so well. And there's also a way in which this is a kind of evoking or affecting a type of way in which people in this community, the seaside community in Japan during this time, how they are maybe expressing it in a, for lack of a better phrase, in a kind of Japanese way. That is also, I think, very much part of the decor and style and concern of Ozu in this, and indeed in other films that we will see post 1934, including, I might add, the other film in this release, which is called Floating Weeds. So this is a real impeccable film. It's a beautiful film, and it's one of the best. And so this is the film from Yasujiro Ozu, and it's called Ukigusa Monogatari, or in English, A Story of Floating Weeds. The Criterion Collection has re-released this set, A Story of Floating Weeds and Floating Weeds, and among the films is A Story of Floating Weeds from 1934, and this is on a Blu-ray, and I have taking the liberty of removing. I have the disc in the machine, by the way, and I should point out that the disc is a wonderful, what do you call it? A wonderful moving image montage Blu-ray disc menu. So it's really nice. But for the purposes of the YouTube video, I have just blocked it out of this the YouTube video, lest I offend the YouTube copyright gods. So I'm very sorry about that. I hope you can understand. But let me say that the the film, A Story of Floating Weeds, is one of the two films that you can choose when you put the single disc in the player, because you can have watch both films are available on the single disc. So today we've spoken about A Story of Floating Weeds. And I should point out that about the masters, the fold-out insert, which is part of this release, indicates that about A Story of Floating Weeds, it says, I quote, "A Story of Floating Weeds is presented in its original theatrical aspect ratio of 1.33 to 1. This high-definition digital master was created from a 35mm fine-grained master positive, master positive, excuse me. And so I should also point out, too, that when you play it, it says here, in 2004, the Criterion Collection commissioned a new score for A Story of Floating Weeds from noted silent film composer Donald Sozin. The style of the score reflects Yasujiro Ozu's fondness for the music of Robert Schumann, and the director's point of view that musical underscoring need not be strictly tied to the actions or even the emotions of the film. So please note this as well. And so all these details, again, had been a part of the earlier Criterion release, the DVD release, but now, yes, 20 years later, with this new Blu-ray, we have those same contours being carried over here. So, I mean, it looked great on the DVD, and the DVD was it was a high definition transfer, and so. I look at this here, and it's very high quality. I'm looking at this here again. It's also very, very high quality. I mean, it's a it's the high definition digital master. So I don't notice. My understanding, this is not any 4K digital restoration of this work per se, but that's at least my understanding. But that doesn't prevent me from still, obviously it doesn't prevent me from still engaging with it and being engrossed by it, which I am. I always have been since the DVD period, and now I still am with this Blu-ray release. So well done for that. And then also I should point out that as part of the proceedings here, we have the commentary track for A Story of Floating Weeds. And it says, this commentary track, recorded for the Criterion Collection in 2003, features Japanese film historian Donald Ritchie. To listen to the commentary while viewing the movie, press the audio key on your remote at any time. So Donald Ritchie is a sort of legend when it comes to Japanese cinema scholarship. And he's written many texts about Japanese films and Japanese filmmakers, and including he's done a lot of work on Yasujiro Ozu as well. And in many ways, a lot of his work has pioneered a lot of the Ozu studies that have since taken place in large numbers in the West. So Donald Ritchie's perspective is really, really quite valuable, and it's a wonderful commentary track. It's one that I've heard before, but it's great to have it here again for purposes of the Criterion release. And so, yes, a Story Floating Weeds commentary track. Here we have some discussion about the use of the titles and how this is kind of the first time, according to Donald Ritchie, where this title style is being used, and the backdrop of the matte fabric. And James Maki, Donald Ritchie points out who James Maki actually is. This is a nom de plume of Ozu. And also talking about the Kihachi character. And as I mentioned before, the Kihachi character is one that actually appears in a number of other, the world of Ozu. This is where he, the character, as played by Sakamoto here, plays a very prominent role, obviously, in the proceedings of the film, A Story Floating. And other points, too, that Donald Ritchie provides in this really wonderful commentary track are aspects of the emotional temperature, how emotional temperature is registered in this film and indeed in other films by Yasujiro Ozu. It has a certain, for lack of a better phrase, it's a certain Japanese way about it. Things that are spoken and unspoken, things that are meant to be sort of hidden or maybe not submerged per se, but meant to be maybe tolerated, and perhaps a kind of quiet and a quiet type of suffering or kind of tragedy that's felt, but we as viewers can feel it as well, although maybe it's not always felt among the characters in the particular space at the time. And then also to the way that symbols are portrayed and presented in this film, and objects in the frame, the actual framing of films, and the way that characters are situated within the space of an Ozu film, like A Story Floating Weeds. And then too, things like the class structure. I think there's a lot to be made about the proletariat story, the working classes, and how Donald Ritchie seems to point out too that over the course of Ozu's career after this, he'll gradually talk about the lower middle classes, and then the middle class and the upper middle classes as he progresses through the end of his filmography. So it's an interesting progression that he makes. All in all, this is a classic commentary track, and it's one of the best. So if you have the opportunity to listen to the film or watch the film with the commentary track on, I can strongly recommend it. It's really one of the best. And I should point out too that concludes the supplements that are included with A Story of Floating Weeds. It is like what we saw in the earlier DVD edition. So we're not getting anything new per se. Of course, it would have been awesome if we had gotten something new on the occasion of this 2024 re-release of this film. It would have been great if we got something new, but I'm very content with the film, and I'm very content with the commentary track. It is a really wonderful commentary track. There's a lot of information provided in it, so please keep that in mind. Also, there is the booklet, or the fold-out leaflet, which has the essay, also by Donald Ritchie, Stories of Floating Weeds. There are some A Story of Floating Weeds specific details of this essay, but it could be described as being a kind of overall essay focusing in on both films. So I'd like to propose to talk a little bit about that essay in a separate video, concluding this video discussion series. But it's a really great essay, just keep that in mind as well. So that's it for now, my dear friends. What I propose to do is let us now move to the next video, where we can talk about the second of the films in this set, which is called Floating Weeds. So I hope to see you at the next video. But until then, my dear friends, please continue to be happy and healthy and well, and please continue to watch a lot of great movies, including A Story of Floating Weeds, including Floating Weeds, including other films by Yasujiro Ozu, including other films in the Criterion Collection, and beyond. So until the next video, my dear friends, stay strong, stay safe, and cheers.